The porch swing creaks beneath Mark's weight, a sound that's become as much a part of his evening ritual as the lukewarm coffee in his mug. His calloused thumb traces the chip on the ceramic rim, a battle scar from when Lily, his daughter, knocked it off the table during one of her nightmares. The air carries the scent of someone's charcoal grill a few houses down, mixing with the honeysuckle that climbs his mailbox post. Across the street, Dr. Sarah Chen's silver Volvo pulls into her driveway, precise as a surgeon's incision. Same time as always, 7:42 p.m. There's something profoundly human about watching for these small constants in our lives, isn't there? We build invisible calendars around the habits of others, finding comfort in their predictability when our own lives feel like they're made of quicksand. Mark sips his coffee, wincing at its bitterness. He should have made a fresh pot. But after 12 hours at the construction site and then helping Lily with her science project, he'd settled for reheating this morning's dregs. His shoulders ache with the day's labor, but his eyes remain fixed on Sarah's movements. She emerges from her car wearing scrubs beneath her wool coat, navy blue today. Her posture is perfect, spine straight as a level, head held high. To anyone else, she might look untouchable, composed. But Mark notices what others don't: the way her fingers fumble with her house keys, how they tremble slightly before finding the lock. He's watched this scene play out for months now. Dr. Sarah Chen, the gynecologist who delivers other people's miracles, returns home to an empty house that seems to swallow her whole. We're all performing some version of ourselves for the world. The gap between who we appear to be, and who we are when the door closes behind us. That's where our truest self resides. Sometimes I wonder if loneliness isn't just the fear that no one will ever witness both versions and still choose to stay. Tonight, something's different. Sarah pauses at her threshold, keys suspended mid-air. Her shoulders rise and fall with a deep breath that Mark can almost feel in his own chest. Then, unexpectedly, she turns and looks directly at him. Their eyes meet across the distance of 2 front yards and a quiet suburban street. Mark doesn't look away, neither does she. For 3 heartbeats, they acknowledge each other's existence without pretense. Mark raises his chipped mug in a small salute. After a moment's hesitation, Sarah nods, the barest dip of her chin, before disappearing inside her house. The porch swing creaks again as Mark leans back, feeling the weight of something unspoken but recognized passing between them. The pounding on Mark's door comes at 17 a.m., his fist connecting with the wood so hard it sends pain shooting up his arm. Lily's breathing had gone from labored to terrifying in minutes, her asthma attack worse than he'd ever seen. His daughter's lips had taken on a bluish tint that turned his insides to ice. "Help, please, someone help us." His voice cracks, raw with fear. There are moments in parenthood that strip away every pretense of having your life together. When your child can't breathe, you realize how fragile the illusion of control really is. We spend years building walls of competence, only to have them crumble in seconds when someone we love is suffering. The porch light across the street flicks on. Sarah appears in her doorway wearing flannel pajama pants and an oversized Harvard Medical School shirt, her professional armor nowhere in sight. She doesn't hesitate, just grabs something from inside and runs barefoot across the asphalt. "I'm a doctor," she says, already brushing past him, no introduction needed. Mark watches her kneel beside Lily's small form on the living room floor. Sarah's hands, the same ones that trembled with her house keys, move with absolute certainty now. She administers the emergency inhaler she brought, her voice a steady anchor as she coaches Lily through each breath. "That's it. Small sip of air. Hold, now release. You're doing great, sweetheart." It's strange how crisis strips us down to our essentials. All the small talk and social dancing we do becomes meaningless when someone needs exactly what we can give. In those raw moments, we're neither impressive nor flawed, just necessary. An hour later, with Lily finally asleep in her bed, Mark's hands shake as he pours coffee into 2 mismatched mugs. The kitchen clock's tick seems unnaturally loud. Sarah sits at his scratched oak table, her fingers tracing a water ring on the wood. "Thank you," Mark says, his voice still unsteady. "I don't know what I would have. You would have handled it." Sarah interrupts, accepting the mug. "Parents always do." Something in her tone makes Mark look up. Her professional mask has slipped, revealing a flicker of something vulnerable in her eyes. "I see them every day." She continues, staring into her coffee. "Women becoming mothers. The moment they do anything, absolutely anything, for this tiny person they've just met." A pause. I always thought I'd have that too. We all carry private disappointments, the lives we thought we'd have by now. Sometimes the heaviest silence isn't the one between two strangers, but the one between the person we are and the person we thought we'd become. Mark doesn't offer empty comfort or solutions. He simply sits across from her, two people awake in the quiet hours when the rest of the world sleeps, finally seeing each other clearly. The rain taps against the window like impatient fingers, creating rivulets that distort the streetlights outside. Mark traces one water trail with his index finger, feeling the cool glass against his skin. Sarah sits cross-legged on his couch, her cardigan pulled tight around her shoulders. 3 months of evening walks, weekend breakfasts, and quiet conversations have led to this moment, her face a canvas of shadows and hesitation. "I need to tell you something," she says, her voice barely audible above the rain. "Something I've never told anyone. We all have thresholds in relationships. Those invisible lines where we decide whether to remain in the comfortable shallows or wade into deeper waters. The moment you choose to reveal your darkest truth to someone is like jumping off a cliff, hoping they'll still be there when you surface." Mark sets down his wine glass, the burgundy liquid catching the lamplight. He's learned to read Sarah's body language, the way she tucks her hair behind her ear when nervous, how her right foot bounces slightly when she's building courage. Both tells are present now. "It was my second year as an attending physician," she begins. "A stormy night, like this one." Her words come slowly at first, then faster, like a dam breaking. She describes the prominent Harrington family, local real estate developers with their name on half the buildings downtown. The daughter-in-law brought in for an emergency C-section. The bruises on her arms that didn't match her story of falling downstairs. The husband, son of the family patriarch, reeking of whiskey, aggressive with the nursing staff. Sarah's fingers twist together as she speaks, knuckles whitening. "I documented everything. The pattern of bruises. Her fearful reactions when he entered the room. I followed protocol exactly. There are moments in our professional lives when doing the right thing and doing the expected thing diverge. We imagine ourselves as heroes in these scenarios, standing tall against injustice. But reality is muddier, isn't it? The hero's path rarely comes with job security or a mortgage payment." The next morning, my documentation was gone. The hospital administrator, who played golf with the Harringtons every Sunday, called me into his office. Sarah's voice hardens. "He never directly told me to drop it. Just mentioned my promising career, my student loans, how difficult it would be to find another position if I developed a reputation for trouble." Mark watches a tear track down her cheek, catching the light before she brushes it away. "I stayed silent. I chose my career over her safety." The confession hangs in the air between them. "I see her sometimes, at the grocery store. Still with him. Still wearing long sleeves in summer. The weight of our compromises follows us like a shadow, doesn't it? We make peace with our choices until something, or someone, makes us look at them in the harsh light of day. The person we present to the world is built on these moments when we chose safety over courage. And we wonder if anyone could love us if they knew." Mark reaches across the space between them, his calloused palm covering her trembling hands. Not to absolve, but to acknowledge. To witness. Mark's hands freeze mid-motion. The photo album he's been showing Sarah suspended between them. The faded wedding picture. Emma in white, her smile radiant despite the illness that would claim her just 3 years later, trembles slightly in his grip. Sarah's face has drained of color, her coffee mug forgotten on the side table. "What was your wife's maiden name again?" Sarah asks, her voice unnaturally controlled. "Brennan, Emma Brennan." Mark watches confusion, then recognition, then horror cross Sarah's face in rapid succession. Why? Life has these moments of terrible symmetry, doesn't it? When seemingly random pieces suddenly lock together, revealing a pattern that was there all along. We call it coincidence because the alternative, that our pain has purpose, that our losses are connected, is almost too much to bear. Sarah's fingers press against her lips, as if physically holding back words. Emma Brennan, 29 years old. Admitted for complications during her 3rd trimester. Her voice has taken on the clinical tone of someone reading from a medical chart burned into memory. Patient presented with elevated blood pressure, protein in urine. Classic preeclampsia symptoms. Mark's throat constricts. The album slides from his hands, landing with a dull thud on the carpet. "How do you know that? You weren't her doctor." "No. But I reviewed her case." Sarah's eyes meet his, unflinching now. After she died, when her records disappeared. The Harringtons owned the hospital wing where she was treated. The room seems to tilt beneath Mark's feet. 5 years of unanswered questions about Emma's death. Why her symptoms were dismissed until it was too late. Why her medical records vanished after he mentioned a lawsuit. Crystallize into a single, terrible understanding. Grief changes shape over time. But it never truly leaves us. We build our lives around these empty spaces, learning to navigate the absence. Then something shifts the landscape, new information, a different perspective, and we realize we've been walking on unstable ground all along. They buried her case along with dozens of others. Sarah continues, her words coming faster now. Experimental treatments, understaffed wards, corners cut to save costs. Your wife's death wasn't an unfortunate complication, it was negligence. The same negligence I stayed silent about. Mark's fingers dig into the armrest of his chair, the leather creaking under his grip. The room smells of coffee and Sarah's vanilla perfume. Ordinary scents that now feel surreal against the extraordinary revelation unfolding. All this time, he whispers, you knew who I was when you moved here. Sarah shakes her head, a single tear tracking down her cheek. Not at first. But when I saw your last name on your mailbox that first day, I looked you up. Confirmed my suspicion. I've been trying to find the courage to tell you since that night with Lily. The universe has a strange way of bringing people together, doesn't it? Sometimes the very person who holds a piece of your past is the same one offering you a future. The question becomes, can you accept both from the same hands? Mark looks at Sarah. Really looks at her, seeing not just the woman he's grown to love, but the keeper of his most painful truth. The silence between them stretches, filled with the weight of decisions yet unmade. The manila envelope sits between them on the kitchen table, innocuous yet somehow ominous in the morning light. Mark runs his thumb along its sealed edge, feeling the slight resistance of the glue. Inside affidavits, medical records. Sarah had secretly copied years ago testimonials from 3 nurses who'd finally agreed to speak. 6 months of careful work, of late nights and whispered phone calls. Once we send this to the state medical board and the Tribune, there's no going back. Mark says, his voice rough from lack of sleep. The coffee in his mug has gone cold, untouched. Sarah nods, her fingers interlaced with his free hand. The diamond ring on her finger, simple, elegant, new, catches the sunlight streaming through the window. The most important decisions in our lives rarely announce themselves as such. They arrive disguised as ordinary moments, a signature on paper, a phone call made, a truth finally spoken aloud. It's only later we recognize them as the hinges upon which our entire future swung. I keep thinking about Emma, Sarah says quietly. And that young mother, Melissa Harrington. All the others whose cases were buried. Her thumb traces small circles on Mark's palm, a gesture that's become her unconscious habit when anxious. I've spent my career helping bring new life into the world, while staying silent about those we lost through negligence. Mark watches her face, the determined set of her jaw. The slight furrow between her brows that deepens when she's resolute. He's memorized these expressions over the past year, cataloged them alongside Lily's growing collection of Sarah memories. Sarah teaching her to make pancakes, Sarah braiding her hair before school, Sarah's laughter filling rooms that had been too quiet for too long. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. We build our character not in grand, heroic moments, but in these quiet kitchens where we choose integrity over comfort, truth over safety. Where we look at what we stand to lose and still say this matters more. The hospital board already made their position clear. Sarah continues, her voice steadier now. Either I drop this or resign. Her fingers tighten around his. I've already signed the lease on that empty storefront on Maple. The one with the big windows. Mark nods, picturing the space they'd walked through last week. Sarah pointing out where exam rooms could go, where a small waiting area would fit. Her eyes had lit up in a way he'd never seen before. Describing a practice where she could truly care for patients without corporate oversight. Lily's already planning to help decorate, he says. A smile tugging at his lips despite the weight of the moment. Family isn't always what we imagined it would be. Sometimes it forms in the aftermath of loss. In the spaces grief hollowed out that love eventually fills. The family you build from choice can be as real and solid as any you're born into, sometimes more so, because you chose each other with open eyes. Sarah takes a deep breath and reaches for the envelope. Her hand no longer trembles as she picks it up. "Ready?" she asks. Mark stands, pulling her gently to her feet. He kisses her forehead, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, lavender and something uniquely her. "Together," he answers. "The truth doesn't always set you free in the ways you expect. Sometimes it costs you a career, a reputation, a comfortable life. But what it gives in return: integrity, purpose. The ability to look at yourself in the mirror each morning. That's the foundation on which a real life can be built."